The objective of this lesson will be to evaluate and try to understand how the arithmetic operators work at their basic level. And then for part 2, we're going to put them all into an application where we're going to consolidate some of the previous knowledge we've learned so far, including the use of functions. But at this stage, we're going to do everything as a script, and we're going to investigate how the addition operator works, the subtraction operation works, multiplication, division, modulus, and exponential, without using the function POW from the math library and the floor division. So these will be basically what we're going to be looking at. So let's start with the plus operator. Now we've seen that before, and so this is operator plus, okay? So that is typically used to add two numbers together. And we could also use that to concatenate two strings together. So for example, if we had num1 equals 4 and num2 equals 8, then if we do the sum and we add num1 plus num2, and then if we print the sum, we're going to get basically an integer sum of these two, which will lead to a 12, as you can see here. Now, should you make one of them a float, 4.0, let's see what happens now with the sum. It automatically converts to a float. So by adding a float value to an integer value, an integer is basically a number that is whole, does not have a decimal point. Float will have a decimal point. So the addition of these two numbers, it's permissible to add a float with an integer. What you end up with is basically a float, okay? So sum will be a float, and it will print it out in that manner. So what else can we do with the plus operator? Well, we could override it and make it an actual, so instead of an arithmetic operation, a concatenation operation between two strings. So for example, if I have first equals Drew and last equals Frank's, okay, and then I can concatenate, so full name, concatenate these two together. So first plus last as variables, right? So what's going to happen here? So if we print full name, they're going to be attached to each other. Now, if we could do that, we can also concatenate a string literal to this to format it better. So let's go ahead and first go ahead and print full name so you could see what the concatenation will do. As you can see, now to manipulate this, we can actually put a space and then add another concatenation. So leave a little space here. This is a string literal, right? You're adding it to two variables. Let's see what the result of that comes up to be. And there you have it. Now, if you want to do something like, I want to format this with a tab, then you could put in an escape character /t, and that will give an automatic tab between the two. Now, if you do a /n, for example, as an escape character, that will give you a new line between first and last. So let's see how that works. And there you have it. So it will put the second variable back on the next line, right? So the /n forces a new line if you wanted to do that. So we're going to just leave a space there. That makes more sense to what we're trying to do here. But that gives you an idea what you can do. So this is the operator plus. The operator minus it's simply for subtractions. And so we could, so if we have num1, num2 already, we could subtract num1 from num2. So the difference minus num2. So we already have variables with assigned values. So let's go ahead and print the difference. Just to to make it a little more interesting, you can actually print, if you want to be more verbose as to what you're doing. And let's go ahead and see what that gives us. And as you can see here, 4 minus 8 will give us a -4. Okay? So how about multiplication? Can we look at the multiplication? So operator, and the multiplication is an asterisk. Okay? So that will be the multiplication. So let's call it mul. You can call it result if you want. num1 times num2. And let's go ahead and print result in this case. And then we're going to put mul in here. And let's see what the multiplication yields when you do something like this. Okay? So we get that result. Okay, so that is 8 times 4, right? So what if I made 8 negative? Let's see what all the results are going to be. Everything changes, right? So obviously, if we look at the difference, you're subtracting 4 minus -8, you end up with 12. However, if you multiply 4 by -8, you end up with -32. Okay? All right, so how about the operator division? So operator, so in case you want to divide two numbers together, and that would be the / in this manner, and well, that's the backslash. So let's go ahead and, I think the / is like this, okay? All right, so so we need to actually do it this way. All right, so let's go ahead and do it. So let's call it div, and that's going to be equal to, let's say, num1 divided by num2. Okay, let's see what the result of that is. Print division yields this value. Okay, you could be creative as to what you want to display, and then put div here, okay, as your variable. All right, so let's see what happens. And we get as -0.5, right? So, and indeed, the relationship between num1 and num2 is half, right? So num1 is half of num2. And that's what we're getting here. Okay, can we raise, let's say, num1 to some exponent, right? Or without using the POW function that we've done before by including or importing the math module. So yes, you can, to a certain point. It's crude, but it works. And let's call it operator. And let's do this. Notice that. That's going to square it. So let's go ahead and try it. So let's convert num3. So let's say we want to square num1, and we're going to store it in num3. So num1 asterisk asterisk, and that would be 2. All right, let's see what happens. So we're not multiplying by 2. So let's see here, print num1 squared equals, and we're going to put num3 as the result of that operation. And there you have it. So knowing that num1 was 4, by squaring it, we obtained 16, right? So 4 squared is 16. So now, how about, so this is the exponential. How about floor division? In other words, if we're dividing two numbers, can we get to the to the floor of that? So let's say you divided 15 by 7. What would that yield? So let's go ahead and try to do that. So let's say num1, I could reuse the same variables, and I'm going to assign 15. Num2, I'm going to assign it 7. So we know if we divide these two together, what would happen? So if simply we did a division, so result 1 equals num1 divided by num2. And then we're going to do a floor, result 2. Okay, so this operator, by the way, let me just write it up here. Operator, and it's going to look like this. So that's going to be the floor. Okay, so let me just write next to it here. This means floor. So result 2 equals num1 floor num2. So we're going to compare these two and see what we get. So print, we're going to do num1 divided by num2 equals, and we're going to put a comma here. That would be result 1. And then comma, and we're going to do a /n to give us a new line, num1 floor num2, and equals, and that would be result 2. All right, let's see how this behaves. As you can see here, if we simply divided, let me put these together like this so it looks much more like it. Let me just rerun this. There you go. All right, so num1 divided by num2, we get a float value, right? And this here automatically rounds to the floor of this value, which means 2, right? So the lowest possible integer you can get out of that, which is a 2. Okay? So in part 2, we're going to write an exercise where we're going to build a small calculator that is, we'll use functions, and we'll have a menu-driven, it will be a menu-driven application. I will see you then.